What is up, everyone? Ninja Nick back with another round of this league challenge at Kirwan's Game Store in Catskill, New York. We have our boy Tori on the left, who ends up winning the League Cup in Poughkeepsie, New York, just a couple weeks after this took place, but that tournament is already uploaded to the channel in case you did not get to see that yet. That was the one that went up right before the ones from this tournament. And then we have Jason on the right here is playing. I do remember this because I looked over at their match for a second to see what Jason was playing. He is playing Lost Box Arcetina. I don't know either. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know how he fits all the cards in. I don't know anything. So, I mean, reducing consistency by mashing two decks together is not something that I recommend. But, I mean, I make a lot of jokes in Arceus decks when they play Colress's Experiment that they could attack with Cram, and I guess that's something he'll probably end up doing. Yeah, he has the whole Comfy engine along with Arceus Giratina. So the thing with Arcetina is that you want to be attacking with Arceus to charge up the Giratinas. But the thing with Comfy is that you want to charge up the Lost Zone to charge up Giratina. So, I mean, those two play styles do conflict quite heavily. So I'm not quite sure, like, if Jason will be able to put together a win condition in this game. But it is still possible because he might have tools such as Sableye in the deck, so he might actually be able to put up a good fight versus Tori here because Tori is on Gardevoir, the tried and true deck, the BDIF of the format. Tori likes to draw pretty hot with this deck. He is a pretty good player, so we are seeing him set up. After going first here, he gets the Radiant Greninja down, as well as two Ralts to the bench. Starting the Manaphy is not something that you normally want to do, but in this matchup, it might actually be a little bit relevant, because maybe Jason has a Greninja that he can set up. You usually don't play a Radiant in Arceus, but if you're playing it as a Lost Box deck as much as an Arceus deck, I suppose you could have it. So, we are seeing the retreat into the Radiant Greninja and pass. So, Tori is assuming that this is just a straight Lost Box deck and that he might get crammed on this turn. So, he is preparing for that by retreating into the Greninja. He would rather have the Greninja get hit and not be knocked out than the Manaphy get knocked out. We do see the Heavy Ball is going to search his prize cards for a Cramorant. So we will be able to see that come out from there. Putting those 6 prizes back out. Also, an important note to any newer players, letting your opponent know what you're playing before the match starts can affect what their active Pokemon is. So by playing Giratina sleeves, you're telling your opponent that you are more likely than not playing Giratina. So if you're going to play Giratina sleeves or Gardevoir sleeves, do not play the deck of which the Pokemon is on the sleeves. Don't do that. Try to mind game your opponent a little bit. My final winning in at NAIC into day 2, my opponent had a Giratina playmat and a Arceus level X as his V-Star marker, and I was playing Rapid Strike, so I clearly knew that I was most likely going to win that match. It made me much calmer than I would have if I did not know what my opponent was playing until the Pokemon flipped over on turn 1. So it gave me that extra time to like kind of zen out and calm down in order to get my head into the game, because I did tilt myself by throwing the match before that and into it, I think, a tie. So because my opponent advertised exactly what they were playing with their paraphernalia, I guess, it helped me win the game. So don't do that. don't do that. I just recommend not doing that ever. So we do see the Worker coming out from Tori just to allow him to draw 3 cards. You know, Worker, not the best supporter to be playing. I'm pretty sure Tori is not a fan of the Worker whatsoever. I think he did recently cut it for Penny, I want to say, if I got his more recent deck list correct from watching his games and playing against him. But we do see he also has the Mew here that can always find you a Battle VIP pass if it is your first turn, but it's no longer the first turn, so maybe it can find him another level ball to evolve this next Ralts into another Kirlia to draw some more cards. Would also be nice to get some more Ralts into play as well. He only has 2 Gardevoir lines even going at the moment. We would like to see a third one down. At the very least, he does have that Manaphy, so that does protect him quite a bit. And we did only see an Abyss Seeking on the last turn, putting the Lost Zone count at 3. So I think Tori is feeling pretty good here. He knows the Cramorant is in hand, but he's not really threatened by it quite yet. Yeah, so he is going to search his top 6 cards for the Ultra Ball. Puts that into his hand. He's got those nice NAIC promo Ultra Balls he managed to trade his way for from I think some of his opponents at NAIC. I think he got them for a pretty good price too. So we are going to Ultra Ball. This will probably get, again, either the Ralts to put on the bench or another Kirlia to potentially hope to draw into a Ralts. I think that I personally would risk it and go for the Kirlia and try to draw into a Ralts, or wait to get Ralts. But plus that gets you 1 card closer to a second Gardevoir even. So I don't think that it's that bad necessarily. So we do see Rare Candy into Gardevoir EX, so never mind, he just had the nuts. Does just go for the pass of the turn though after that. I think going for the Rare Candy now is good because you are protecting that Ralts from having such few HP. If your opponent has such a crazy turn, they can go to 10 cards in the Lost Zone. Maybe if they also play that Hawlucha where if you bench it, you can put a damage counter on 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. He would be able to do that to both Ralts and then Sableye to put 6 damage counters to each Ralts, thus knocking both of them out. So definitely the correct play to just go for the Rare Candy now. You could also always get Ionode, which would then put the Rare Candy Guardy onto the bottom of your deck. So just get it out of your hand while you can. And Tori's already got a pretty loaded up discard pile, quite a few cards in there. Managed to draw quite a few cards deep, so he is getting the setup going. He also, as you can see in hand, has the Sky Seal Stone. That was popularized by the Gardevoir players in my area because of me playing Rapid Strike. I mean, they were on it and off it and on it and off it for quite a while, but I think it's now the group consensus that we all think that the Sky Seal Stone is great in Gardevoir. It just makes matchups that much better. So we do see an attach for turn of the Grass Energy to this Giratina V, and I don't think we really have much else. I see an Ultra Ball. I think maybe is that a Research? Is that supporter card after that? I'm not quite sure, but also a couple energy cards. I don't see any more Comfeys. I don't see any Switch cards. And of course, we did see the Arceus come down. Now again, Arceus's point is to just use Trinity Charge and evolving and using Trinity Nova in order to set up your Giratinas. But if you're just using Abyss Seeking every turn trying to set up your Lost Zone, or if you're using Comfey Flower Selecting all the time, you know, you just don't have an Arceus in your active spot, so it makes those Arceus just not very valuable. You could always Starbirth still with it, but I think it would be better to just maybe play a 1/1 line. But then again, these Lost Box decks don't really play Ultra Ball that often because it's only really good for searching out the Giratina pieces. You'd much rather just play Nest Ball all the time to get out your dudes, or just try to go ham turn 1 and battle VIP passing. So we are going to see the top 6 with the Mew trying to find an item card, and it looks like we do fail. It was just Pokemon Energy and supporter cards. It looks like no items. But that's perfectly fine. There's nothing Tori was really looking for, I don't think, there, because I think he has... I mean, I guess a level ball would have been nice to get another Curly into play. But you have the Mew in the active spot, no reason not to do it. No energies in hand, so you can't use concealed cards with Greninja, but you can Refinement with the Kirlia and see if you can get into anything else. We've got 4 cards in the 4 energy cards in the discard pile, so we can potentially attack with Gardevoir EX this turn. But I'm not sure if you exactly want to go there, because that would then allow your opponent to potentially hit into you with a Giratina V-Star next turn for 280. And then you'd definitely be within Sableye range of a knockout. We are going to see the Collapse Stadium come out after we retreat the Mew to the bench. That way we get that out of play. We're also going to attach the Sky Seal Stone to our Greninja before researching. I think that it would have been better to actually discard that Sky Seal Stone with the research, because he did put it to the Greninja. You can only use Sky Seal Stone if it's attached to a basic V Pokemon, and only works also if you attack with a basic V Pokemon. But he can't utilize the Sky Seal Stone since it's on the Greninja whatsoever. And your opponent, since they're playing a Lost Box deck, they could have a Lost Vacuum, so you could be allowing them to get an extra card in their Lost Zone by allowing them to play Lost Vacuum on an additional card that could have just been in your discard pile. So I do think that's a very, very minor misplay there from Tori. And we do finally see that Kirlia is coming down onto that Ralts, being able to evolve. Use that Refinement ability to draw another 2 cards, getting another Psychic Energy into the discard pile, and we are going to draw 2 here with our Gardevoir's Shining Arcana ability. So we are going to attach for turn from hand to that Gardevoir, and now we will be able to get some energies out of the discard pile with Psychic Embrace from Gardevoir EX in order to power up this active Gardevoir. So in order to take the knockout here, we're doing base 60 plus 30 for every Psychic Energy on the Gardevoir. Looks like we are going to load up with 5 from the discard pile, so a total of 6 energy makes it 6 times 3 is 180, plus 60 is another total of 240. So just enough for the knockout. Would have been 10 short if he had 1 less energy. So he is able to take the first 2 prize cards of the game. Of course, does have a heavily damaged Gardevoir in the active spot now, but his opponent has no energy in play. And nothing else much going on here. Because again, he chose to go the Lost Box route, so now he has an Arceus as his only attacker left in play at the moment. And he's going to have to try to charge up Arceus with a Mirage Gate. Looks like we are going to use the Chorus's Experiment to get rid of a couple of cards, one of which being the Beach Court, that if you promoted Comfey, would have allowed you to retreat it, so you could have used the Comfey ability, gotten even another card in the discard pile. You would have been at 8, or in the Lost Zone rather. You could have been at 8 this turn had you promoted the Comfey instead. So now, I think the best course of action that he can really do is attach that double turbo to the Arceus and Trinity charge to the Giratina on the bench, but he's got a couple of basic energies in hand already. He had a couple on his last Giratina, so how much more energy is realistically in the deck? I don't know if there's going to be that many. It would be nice to see if we had a switch cart for use with that Cramorant. You could always knock out this Gardevoir with the Cramorant by doing 110. It's only got 40 HP left remaining, and you could use that opportunity to attach maybe a double turbo to your Arceus that would then be on the bench after you switch it out. So we do also have 35 minutes left in this best of 3 Swiss round 2. So we are going to have to see Jason maybe pick up the pace of play just a little bit to see if we can really get to much of anything this game. He is at a significant disadvantage since the Gardevoir is already fully set up, and he has not even done an attack that isn't Abyss Seeking yet. So he does go for the, looks like an Ultra Ball, getting rid of a double Turbo Energy to find the Arceus V-Star. He's going to put it into hand. I think you just shortcut it at this point. I think you just evolve into the Arceus V-Star and you search out your Switch card or your Mirage Gate or whatever it is that you're trying to go for right now. You really need to get going. If you want to win 2 games in the match, you're already at 35 minutes remaining. You've got to get this going. So it looks like we are going to see the attach return to the Arceus and the Arceus V-Star. So I'd really like to see this Arceus V-Star power go for... Oh, it looks like we already have an escape rope in hand. That's not the switch card that you want to be using right now because your opponent's active is the one with all the energy and the damage on it. So if you want to attack with Cramorant. Also, it looks like he's showing his opponent what he is searching for with the Starbirth. Since it is any 2 cards from the deck, you do not have to reveal what they are. The only times cards make you reveal what you're searching from deck is if you're searching for a specific type of card. So if you're searching for a trainer card or a supporter card or an item card or an energy card, then you have to reveal that to allow your opponent to double check to make sure you searched out the correct type of card. But since Arceus says any 2 cards from your deck, your opponent doesn't have to verify that they are a specific type of card, so you might as well keep that information private and not show your opponent what you got. So obviously you're going to go straight into playing the Mirage Gate here, so I wouldn't be opposed to just revealing that you searched that off of the Arceus, but I definitely would have kept the boss's orders secret because now Tori is going to know that his Gardevoir EX is potentially within range of getting knocked out next turn. He could always see a lost impact with a Cleansing Gloves could do 310 to it, so this might actually make him preemptively evolve into a second Gardevoir EX, or at least try to find one for his hand if he does not have one already in there. It looks like we are going to go for the Trinity Nova, and again, our player on the right here did allow for the Shuffle Cut after the Mirage Gate, just to immediately go back in. So if you guys are a new player, just make sure that you are aware that you don't necessarily have to just shuffle and cut your deck each time. As long as you are immediately gonna go back in with your next action, you can save time and just shuffle once after you do both actions. It is a really great time-saving measure because you don't want to spend a minute shuffling your deck, having your opponent cutting it, and then just go ahead and do that again when you could have just done it once instead of 2-3 times in the same turn. What I like to do to show my opponent that I have not shuffled my deck yet is I will put it sideways on the board. Your deck is required to be north-south at all times, so upright, just like both players are playing them now. But that's sort of my way to signify that I have not shuffled the deck yet. So if a judge were to come over and say your deck has to be north-south, and I'm like, oh, I haven't shuffled it yet, I'm just going to go back in a second, and usually they tell me it's fine. Or I'll just like put it off the side, like not on my playmat. Or down like where the players have their hands normally. You could put it down there like by the bench to show. Like don't put it back to the deck zone. So Tori does have a Zacian V here now. He might be able to go for the potential knockout in one hit here. He would go down to 2 prize cards remaining. And again, your opponent has only taken 2 prize cards here. Or 1 prize card. So you will be ahead 3 if you are able to pull that off. Of course, he can return knockout with any of his Pokemon in play, including the Cramorant. So it's not really ideal to be attacking with the Zacian right now, but if you want to get through this Arceus, it has 280 HP, so you really do have to go for that. So we see the attached return. There's the Sky Seal Stone. Oh, okay. So Tori played correctly. So earlier when I said he should have discarded the Sky Seal Stone because his opponent could Lost Vacuum it, that's actually incorrect, because this turn he played the Penny to put his Greninja back into his hand, saving the Sky Seal Stone by because it puts all attached cards back into your hand as well. So now he was able to recycle his Sky Seal Stone, and now he's going to be able to take 3 prize cards on this one Arceus. So actually a really stellar play from Tori, and a great showcase of why Penny is so good in this deck. So now we are going to see this Zacian get fully loaded up. We're going to see a hit for 300 into this Arceus, taking 3 prize cards. Tori just has to make sure he flips that V-Star marker over before he declares his attack, because that is an ability you have to use during your turn. You don't use it during your attack, you use it during your turn, so that then you can attack and take an extra prize. That's a very important distinction on how Sky Seal Stone works. So, yeah, now Jason will be able to take the knockout with the Cramorant, but Tori only needs to knock out the Cramorant in order to take the game. He only has 1 prize card remaining, so all he has to do is promote his Gardevoir EX and put the energies back into play onto his own Gardevoir to take the knockout. So if I were Jason, I would see that my opponent has 1 prize card remaining, I have 5, and that he has a Pokemon able to take the knockout in play currently, so I would just scoop it up and go to the next game to save time. But it looks like Jason here is playing it out. He's going to be playing a Chorus to put 2 more cards into his Lost Zone, going up to 8. And again, we've used a Trinity Nova, but we haven't gotten any use out of our Lost Zone besides the 1 Mirage Gate, and it feels like if you just attacked with Arceus earlier in the game by, like, starting it, you would have been able to advance into the game state more, or if you just doubled down on the whole Lost Box aspect of the deck, you would have been able to find more Comfeys and Switch cards earlier in order to be able to fill that Lost Zone a lot faster. So this is why I know a lot of people don't like net decking or playing whatever the most popular thing is, but sometimes if you're trying to build your own deck, you do have to clarify, what does this deck do? How do I take prizes every turn? What are the mechanics of it? Do the cards in the deck conflict with each other? Is there one clear win condition that I can go for? Are there multiple? Do those multiple win conditions like interact with each other? Is there like in a standard Lost Box deck, you're trying to build up your Lost Zone consistently so that you can use cards that say that you need a certain amount of cards in the Lost Zone. You don't play Comfey just to dig deep into your deck. You play Comfey to get cards in your Lost Zone to use with Mirage Gate, with Giratina, with Sableye. You wouldn't play Sableye in a deck that doesn't get cards into your Lost Zone. You wouldn't play Cramorant in a deck that doesn't play Chorus's Experiment, for example. I know I feel like I'm ragging too hard on this guy, but it's just, in order to make the best deck possible, you do sometimes just have to realize what your game plan is, and if everything in your deck aligns into that one game plan. And it really feels like he's got 2 distinct game plans that just don't really interact with each other. They're just kind of parallel. Or perpendicular. They're perpendicular to each other. They don't both run parallel. So we're going to see, finally, a Lost Impact has been charged up. We're going to take a prize on a 1 prizer. by getting rid of those cards. We are finally now at 10 cards in the lost zone, so we can use the V-Star power. But Tori already has game on board because he already hit for 300 on the last turn, and this Zacian got moved to the bench. So we're just going to see another hit for 300, and the game is won. Now there is 24.5 minutes left in the match, and Jason now has to take 2 wins in that 24 minutes. And Tori doing the pile shuffling here. I'm not a big fan of the pile shuffle, just because, again, it's just as a lot of people say, it doesn't do anything because it's not shuffling. It's just stacking cards in a specific order. Whether you know what that order is irrelevant to the fact that those cards are being put down in a position that you select. Whereas if you're just mashing the cards together, you don't choose where they go. They just all go together as randomly as humanly possible. So you still have to do a full shuffle after that. If you're going to do it to count cards, which I think is what Tori actually does, maybe to an extent, then it's perfectly fine. But I don't like it happening like between games. Between matches, sure. I'm like in the same argument as Azul, but I'm not going to stop anybody that's going to do it against me. It's just like a pet peeve of mine, really. Also, we are seeing what I call the Yu-Gi-Oh! Shuffle or the Japan Shuffle coming out of Jason as well. You really do have to learn how to do the proper mash shuffle. I don't have a... Well, actually, I do. I have a pile of sleeved cards here. So here's a pile of sleeved cards. You got to take them in 2 halves and push them together. And all of the corners, like, just mash together. And they all go in clean. You got to be able to do that if you're playing Pokemon, because the Japan Shuffle or the Yu-Gi-Oh! Shuffle that they do in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, where you just cut your deck continuously, that's not considered a real shuffle in Pokemon, at least in this area. It's not a sufficient shuffle because your cards are not being sufficiently randomized. You're basically just cutting your deck multiple times. So if you see your opponent shuffling their deck like that, you should be calling a judge so that they can issue the player a insufficient randomization warning. So the way Tori is shuffling his cards is the perfect example of exactly how you want to be shuffling your deck. Just like splits it in half, mashes the 2 together, corner to corner, and they slide perfectly into place. If your sleeves are too gunked up and old so that they're not mashing together very well, just change your sleeves, bro. That could be a reason why maybe Jason isn't going for that shuffle, because he is playing those ETB sleeves, the Pokemon ETB sleeves. Pokemon branded sleeves are awful. In Pokemon, you are required, if you are not aware, to play either solid color or Pokemon branded sleeves. That's so that we don't get people playing like, for lack of a better term, big titty waifu sleeves. Basically anything that would be considered inappropriate to children. They just make it a blanket rule. They have to be solid colored sleeves that you can't see through to the back, or they have to be Pokemon branded. But Pokemon branded sleeves, in my opinion, are hot trash. Probably one of the worst brands of sleeves I've ever seen. I highly recommend Dragon Shield and Game Genic personally. Those are my 2 favorite sleeve types. They last the longest, and they feel the best when shuffling. So Tori, of course, starts with the double Battle VIP Pass. Going to be able to search his deck for 4 Pokemon to put directly to the bench. Is pretty great here. Looks like we are going to be choosing... looks like Cresselia Ralts. Is that what it is? Cresselia is an interesting choice to get down this early, but it certainly is a good Pokemon to get. Tori likely... Oh, it looks like he already has the Radiant Greninja. I was going to say maybe Tori prized the Radiant Greninja, but no, he has it in hand already. So he has a pretty great setup going on here. So the Cresselia does allow you to move damage counters from your Pokemon to your opponents. It can take 2 damage counters off of each one of your Pokemon. So it combos really well. As I say, you got to play like parallel, like game design, parallel win conditions. So Cresselia is a Psychic Pokemon, therefore it works with Psychic Embrace. And Psychic Embrace puts 2 damage counters into play on a Pokemon when you put an energy onto it. And Cresselia can move 2 damage counters from each one of your Pokemon. So you could put energies onto 4 of your Psychic Pokemon in one turn with Psychic Embrace, thus getting 20 on 4 Pokemon, so that then you can use the Cresselia to move that damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, thus knocking out a Comfey while healing your own board. Just a very good combo there. So we do see Colress's Experiment coming out right at the beginning here from Jason. I really like to see the first turn Colress's Experiment. Looks like I don't see any Battle VIP passes. I don't think maybe Jason is playing them, because I think I would have at least seen one by now, and I don't think I have. But we are going to get rid of a Clara. That's not very relevant to this early in the game for sure, so I do like getting rid of that. And looks like we have Mirage Gate and Double Turbo Energy would both be options for the second Lost Zone. Looks like we're going to go with the Mirage Gate. Again, perfectly fine. And we are going to Nest Ball. I mean, I guess here, Nest Ball for the Arceus to put the Double Turbo Energy onto, I guess. Because the Giratina doesn't get any benefit out of the Double Turbo Energy. It needs basic energy to attack to do that full 280. Especially if you have the Cleansing Gloves, which I don't think Jason is playing. It will then do the 310 needed to knock out a Gardevoir. But if you ever put a Double Turbo Energy directly onto the Giratina, it will be doing 20 less, so it's only doing 260 or 290 if it has the Cleansing Gloves. So while it works really well with Giratina in that it can fulfill both of the energies that are needed to be put into the Lost Zone for its Lost Impact attack, you don't want that energy to be attached to the Giratina, limiting its damage output. So in the standard Arceus Giratina decks, you'll usually have Double Turbo Energies attached to Arceus or Bibarel in play that you can then Lost Impact away with your active Giratina V-Star. So it looks like we are using the Hisuian Heavy Ball to get a Pokemon out of our prize cards, thus being the Giratina V, putting that Heavy Ball into the prize cards. We're going to use our Flower Selecting, getting rid of either a Giratina V or the Boss's Orders. I think Giratina V is definitely the correct choice. You already have one in hand, one in play. You don't need to have all 3 in a game. If you need to use all 3 Giratinas in a game, you basically should have lost already. I think Tori was just looking at the art because he hadn't seen it before. It is a tin promo. That's why we don't see it a lot around here. But if you guys have been around for the Japanese tournament VOD reviews that I've done when watching things like the Champions League and Japan Championships and stuff like that, they love to play that art of the Giratina. I think that's their favorite version. That is their reprinted art. So I think it might have been hard for them to find Giratina in their Lost Origin set. And I think the reprint was a lot easier to pull for them, potentially. Whereas for us, it's the opposite, because they put it in a tin. Looks like we only have one switching card, though, so we can't utilize both of the Comfeys this turn, but we are going to Escape Rope into our Giratina V, and we are going to use Abyss Seeking. So, looks like definitely Comfey is a good choice to get rid of, and honestly, I think I would get rid of maybe the Switch card. Oh, but no, looks like we're getting rid of the Giratina, so we're not going to be able to use that to discard any of the energies in our hand to draw extra cards. We do have that Grass Energy sitting in there, as well as that Double Turbo. Both of those would be great options to discard to draw extra cards, so I disagree with getting rid of the Greninja here. Although the switch cart is really nice to have, it always feels very hard deciding what to keep and what to get rid of off of the Abyss Seeking. It feels like the Chorus's Experiment is a lot easier to choose because you get to keep 3, but on Abyss Seeking you only get to keep 2. You only see 4 cards deep as opposed to 5, so you got to get rid of 50% of the cards you see there. Makes those decisions that much harder. So we do see the INO here. Tori and Jason are both going to shuffle their hands, put them on the bottom of the deck, and draw a fresh hand equal to their prize cards, which is going to be 6 for both players so far. Looks like we are Ultra Balling away a Psychic Energy as well as a Battle VIP Pass. We're going to be able to find that Gardevoir EX. And put it down into play. We're going to retreat into our Cresselia, and we're going to do the exact play I talked about earlier, where we are going to put an energy card onto 4 Pokemon in play, 4 Psychic Pokemon, thus being able to knock out a benched Comfey. You could also soften up the active Giratina, but I think it's just so easy to one-shot with a Zacian later that I think it's just better to get rid of a Comfey here. Tori rightfully puts the damage counters out and then shows that he is moving them all to the benched Pokemon. I do like when we see the games on video like this. I do like it when they put the damage counters out. But if I'm playing against an opponent at some tournament, we're not on camera, I'll just tell them don't bother putting the damage counters because I know what's going on. So we're seeing another Chorus's Experiment. Also, I really don't like it when people like start putting the cards in different piles like that, like when they're deciding what to keep and what to get rid of for the Chorus's Experiment, because it's already hard enough to track which one is your hand and which one is the Chorus's Experiment sometimes. So I think you should always just keep it all in one pile, like maybe by the Chorus's Experiment. That way you don't confuse them or shuffle them up. I did see that there was recently a League Cup or something that was in Europe where somebody actually swapped their hand with their Lost Zone, which is a pretty blatant mistake, even if it was intentional. I mean, I watched the Uncommon Energy podcast. Everybody else should too. And they were, I only got halfway through it, but they were saying that even if it was a completely intentional mistake, you would have realized you made that mistake and thus had to correct it. And if you didn't correct it, it's cheating. So just do whatever you can to not make those mistakes in the first place by keeping everything in a neat and orderly spot. Keep your hand down below the mat, like where it is now. Keep any of the cards for the Chorus's Experiment by the Chorus's Experiment. And don't get those cards too close to each other. That way, you're like a lot less likely to make a mistake. And you can keep the game as clean as possible. We are seeing that double turbo energy is coming down to the Arceus. And we do have the active Giratina ready to swing with Shred. I do think it is better to just attack with Shred than to Lost Impact if you do have the evolution even. I think we are at 8 in the Lost Zone, it looks like right now. I think that's an 8 on that. I think that's a 12-sided die. I think that's an 8 I see. So, yeah, I definitely would rather Shred than Lost Impact. But I guess Lost Impact does get you to 10. You could Lost Zone that double turbo off of the Arceus, but now if your opponent just knocks you out, you're pretty far down on energy cards. Yeah, so I think this is a mistake here. I think you definitely attack with Shred. Just hope your opponent doesn't have the knockout on it. And even if they do, you would just be 1 energy away from attacking with Arceus on the next turn as a retaliation. So, of course, again, the thing about the deck not having too much synergy, he's trying to get cards in the Lost Zone, and he's got the whole Arceus package going on, but since he's devoting the bench space and the deck space to the Arceus, it's actually interfering with his game plan on how the Giratina wants to operate right now. We are going to see the refinement here from Tori. He did promote that Gardevoir EX. He, at the very least, can attack with that to try to two-shot this Giratina. I think at this point in the game, you assume your opponent is not playing Cleansing Gloves. I don't think they have any room to fit that in with all of the other cards that are in there. So this Gardevoir can definitely take a hit from any of your opponent's cards in play. Well, actually, if you have to put 2 energies from your discard pile to it, you will be doing 40 to yourself, and then a Lost Impact would actually knock you out. So it might be better to just use the Gardevoir as a pivot for a Zacian. So I think that's what Tori's going for. And that's generally something that a lot of Gardevoir decks do, is they do use the Gardevoir EX as a pivot. It does have a 2 retreat cost, and it has a lot of HP, so you can afford to put the damage on that to use it as the pivot. You wouldn't want to use like a Kirlia or a Ralts or the other Gardevoir as a pivot because, you know, they have a whole lot less HP. And then that's less energy that you can put on them in a future turn if you were to retreat them and try to save them for later. Looks like we are also going to go with the INO here. Putting the 1 card that's left on the bottom of the deck to draw a fresh, looks like 5 cards. The opponent actually, Jason here on the right, he didn't shuffle his hand. You are required to shuffle your hand before you put it on bottom. I mean, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. It's more of a technicality. He only had a few cards in hand anyway. I think it might have been a 5-card hand going to a 5-card hand, so with a deck that large, it shouldn't matter in any relevance. He'll most likely have another deck search to just shuffle all of the deck anyway. But if your opponent, say, only has 1 card in deck and they don't shuffle their hand, they could have definitely put an important card at the top of their hand and then immediately redraw into it with the Iono. So important to keep track of stuff like that. Maybe at a league challenge, I wouldn't bother calling a judge on that, but at a league cup or a regional, I definitely would call a judge on that. Actually, at a league challenge recently, I did play against somebody, and they shuffled their hand into their deck for INO instead of shuffling it and putting it on the bottom of the deck, and they got an instant game loss for that because I called the judge. So it was nice having that free game win, but we did play it out for fun anyway, and I still managed to win it. So always makes me feel a little bit better if I win off of my own merit than just off of the judge call. But don't take that as a reason not to call a judge. You know, it might make your opponent feel bad if you do it, but you got to keep the game state clean at any championship point level event, really. Also, Tori's hand dangerously close to his prize cards. That could get you an accidental prize card taken if you do get them too close together. So I would be a little bit wary of that. But Tori's good about stuff like that. He knows how many cards are in his hand and how many prize cards he has left, so he's not going to mix them up, but just a general rule of thumb for that as well. So we are seeing the Gardevoir Psychic Embrace to itself here. It's going to get 20 damage onto itself, and probably just a retreat into this Shining Arcana. Oh no, looks like we're going to be sacrificing the Manaphy here and just passing. I think that's perfectly fine. So there is about 5.5 minutes left on the clock. Tori has already won game 1, and he just has to not lose game 2 in order to win the match. This also forces Jason into a position where he has to Lost Impact a 1-prizer. So you can burn him out of energy and then two-shot him with the Brainwave. So even if time wasn't a factor here, I do still think that that might have been the correct play. You just like have to force a boss's orders out of your opponent, make them waste additional resources. And then of course they're down even more energies. And we saw the escape rope come out here to put the Giratina back on the bench. Is going to force that Manaphy out of the active. But the other one prize option that can be sacrificed here is that Radiant Greninja. So we do see that go to the active spot because of the escape rope. I do like, we did do Obsidian Flames pre-release this weekend. I didn't play because I think paying $30 for $2 worth of cards is a scam. But, I mean, every playable EX is like 30 cents these days. Like, why would you play in a $30 pre-release? Especially when pre-releases used to be 25. But anyway, besides the point, there's that new card Rhyme. Draw 3 cards and then your opponent has to switch their Pokemon. Very reminiscent of a one-sided escape rope there. I think that card is really good. I'm not sure if it's going to be super relevant until after a rotation or two though. But again, I do think it's really good. Just having like some sort of way to force your opponent to switch. I do like playing escape rope in most of my decks, especially in something like Lugia when I was playing that in the previous format pre-rotation. In the mirror, your opponent would start whatever and then bench one Lugia and pass, and then you could just and of course when they go second, and then you could evolve into your V-Star, escape rope to force their only Lugia into the active spot, get your double Archeops out, and then just win the game off of killing their only Lugia. So I'm a fan of escape rope and escape rope-like effects. Also, she's called Rhyme because she's a rapper in the video game. And she does have a skeleton for hair. She has a skeleton arm for hair. Like, she has her hair braided to look like a skeletal arm. It's because she's a ghost-type gym leader. So we do see the judge come out here. Both players shuffle in and draw a fresh 4 cards. 2.5 minutes left on the clock here. Looks like we are going to retreat into the Giratina, and we're gonna Lost Impact away all but one of our remaining energies. Yeah, again, don't know if I like that, but that's all that you can do. And those energies are supposed to go into the Lost Zone, but those were put into the discard pile instead. That is another very important mistake that has been made. There should be 12 cards now in the Lost Zone. Those cards can now potentially be super rotted or something back into the deck. So that's a very relevant misplay. And of course with Giratina, I don't think that making a mistake like that is unintentional generally. I mean, it probably was for him because I think he's a new player. But if I'm seeing something like that at a regional, I know my opponent is not doing that unintentionally. Because every time you attack with Giratina, the energies always go to the Lost Zone. So why would it be any different this time? I don't even think there's really that many Pokemon in format right now that do discard energy and put them into the discard pile. There might be some, but I think they're all like off meta. We do see another Iono come out from Tori. I do believe he's probably playing the full 4, I would imagine. I don't see any reason why not. It's really good at 4 in Gardevoir. We're going to use our refinements here. Draw some extra cards. Tori does have that deck getting a lot thinner here. We're going to grab, looks like the last Psychic Energy out of the deck with this Fog Crystal now. And again, 28 seconds left on the clock, so time might be called during Tori's turn here. They're at 5 prizes to 2, and I think Tori might have a way to take the knockout this turn on the Giratina, going ahead in the prize trade. So we have 3 energies on this Gardevoir right now with no damage on it. So we can see an additional 6 energies come from the discard pile to it. So 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh yeah, that's definitely a knockout. So we're going to see 5, 6, 7, 8 total energies. Times 3 is 240, plus 60 is 300. So yep, that is exact knockout again. Again, if he had 1 less energy on that Gardevoir, would not be able to take the knockout. And we do see time is called, and they're asking who is turn player. Turn player is turn 0. Then you advance 3 more turns. So Tori is turn 0, Jason will be turn 1, Tori will be turn 2, Jason will be turn 3. Unless you're playing a deck like mine, where you Yoga Loop, you can potentially take 2 subsequent turns and be both turn 0 and 1, which I did do at NAIC and it was really fun. Or if you're playing something like Dialga V-Star, you can also do that too with its V-Star power. But Tori is going to take 2 prizes, going into the prize lead now. And then Jason is going to have to find a way to take his 4 remaining prize cards in the next 2 turns. Even if he knocks out Gardevoir EX this turn to go down to 2 prize card remaining by some miracle, he will still have to take another 2 prizes on the next turn, and Tori won't have any remaining 2 prize Pokemon left. So at this point, Jason should be aware of the fact that he has definitely lost this game if it were to not go by time. But again, this game will be considered a tie because it is unfinished after turn 3. Unless Tori just wins the game, which he still could. And then Tori will win the whole match by having won game 1 and Jason not winning any games. Gardevoir, just a deck that takes a lot of time. So does Lost Box. But I also think Jason could have played it a little bit faster. But, I mean, even if he did, I don't know if a game 3 would have finished. Even if he was able to win. So, I think also just a very unfortunate matchup for Jason. I think Gardevoir does have a pretty decent matchup against Arceus Giratina. Especially if you're not playing any Cleansing Gloves or Bibarel. So we are evolving to the Giratina V-Star and the Arceus V-Star, giving those Pokemon more HP, and I think we're going to knock out the Gardevoir with the Cramorant. And again, that will put him at 3 prize cards remaining. It'll go into Tori's turn. Tori just passes even. And then Jason has to take 3 prize cards in his last remaining turn. And he can't do that. So this game will be a tie. And Tori will win off of just game mechanics, basically. So it looks like Tori is still going to try to go for the win. So maybe he can dig his way into maybe a boss's orders if he does not have that already in hand. He might even have the Sky Seal Stone play. You see him searching out that Zacian with the Ultra Ball right now. If he has Sky Seal Stone and then enough energy in play. Oh, looks like we draw the Sky Seal Stone off of the Shining Arcana. Not even having to use that concealed, the refinement yet. We do see there is the boss's orders. We're going to be able to bring up the Giratina. We can put 1 psychic energy to our active so that we can retreat it into the Zacian, put 9 energy from the discard pile onto the Zacian, use Sky Seal Stone to use your V-Star power to take an additional prize card on a V-Star or V-Max Pokemon with your Pokemon V, or basic Pokemon V, and then he takes the knockout and ends up winning this game on his last turn of time. So props to Tori, he did win this 2-0 pretty convincingly in my opinion. And we will see you guys in the next round. As always, do not forget to comment, like, and subscribe and all of that good stuff. But because it's very important to the YouTube algorithm. Again, he is a very hungry boy. Please feed him. Yeah. Well, we'll see you for round 3.